Okay, we are live now and we can start speaking. All right, before we start, I would like to know you and your background. So at least we understand each other based on the background.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Sabina. I'm 23 years old.
Mhm.
I'm originally from Karachi, Pakistan.
Okay, Karachi, Pakistan. Hmm.
Yes. Uh, Lived there for a large portion of my life.
Hmm.
And I came to Australia in 2015 to pursue my university studies.
Okay, 2015. Excellent. And what do you study, by the way?
I study criminology and social work.
Ah, excellent, excellent. That's good to know. And do you want me to introduce myself as well?
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's great. My name is, obviously, Rahmatullah Nauroz, and I used to live in Malaysia, and since 5 or 6 months something, I lived in Germany now. Um, I do business, and I did study some. Again, I study business since I'm studying psychology, and I'm planning to do masters in economics as well. That's life running at the same time. As you can see, I am a dai. A dai mean a person who preach and represent Islam.
Yes.
We do have organization in Kabul, and because of this work, I have been on a different TV channels representing Islam and presenting Islamic values. So today, I want to know your story. Why you left Islam? Number one. Number two, you left Islam while you were in Karachi, or you left Islam in Australia. So if you can share with us. This is again, I'm repeating, this is mostly friendly discussion. We don't have to, be very strong on each other. There is no need for that. I believe this is not something that I have come up with. Islam says that you should be kind and merciful and respectful towards other people. And there's a verse in the Surah Anam that do not insult other gods, even. Forget about people's belief, but do not insult them. We can agree and we also can disagree. And I can say, Lakum dinakum waliyadin. You have your own religion, I have my own religion. uh, there's nothing um, there's nothing to fight about unless we are respectful towards each other. Inshallah, I believe there will be a very good conclusion.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I guess where to begin. I grew up in a largely a conservative household.
Okay.
My parents are devout Muslims. So is my sister. My brother is, I wouldn't say he's an atheist, but he is an irreligious Muslim.
Mhm.
Despite growing up in Pakistan, I have traveled around a lot, and my family actually largely is based in the US, aside from my parents. I would say that I was questioning Islam from a very young age because I was made to practice it and indoctrinated into the religion.
If you can tell me from age of 16, 15, from like young age, if you can be specific.
I remember going and praying as young as 7, 8 years old.
Oh, 7 years old, you're questioning Islam.
No, I was meaning I was practicing the religion. I would say that though I had a questioning mind and I would ask questions from a very young age,
Mhm.
from 10, 11 years old,
Okay.
I had other life events occur to me which had more my top priority. So I'd say to question my faith, though I did have questions and uncertainties about it, it wasn't my main priority.
Mhm.
I had health issues growing up, which were finally resolved when I was 18, 19 years old.
What type of
And
health issues?
I suffered from, when I was younger, I suffered from asthma, which became very severe.
Okay.
And I also, when I was 10, I was diagnosed with epilepsy. So throughout my youth and adolescence, I suffered from epileptic seizures, which was ultimately cured in 18 when I was 18 years old and had surgery.
Okay.
So it was, and that's when my family also moved to the U.S. for my surgery. And it was when I came to Australia in 2015 and I began my studies here that I didn't have anything exactly stopping me from actually finding out more about my uncertainties about the religion and my faith and what I practice. So that's when they really were addressed. I ultimately left Islam towards the end of 2015,
Okay.
so about 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, not a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I would say that when I left Islam, and the main questions that I had about it, those aren't even largely specific to the religion itself. Meaning, it's these reasons are why I didn't convert to Christianity or to Judaism or any other faith-based belief, but why I'm an atheist today is
Okay.
because I couldn't get past the basic premise of a God existing.
Okay, so Sabrina, I mean, this is also, you know very well that psychology and sociology that tell us that human beings are the product of society and upbringing, and most of us make decision based on these two premises. Um, your family they were devout Muslim, they were practicing Muslims, so they were just because I'm aware in Karachi, my friends are there. Many of the people who say that we are Muslim, but they don't really practice what Islam says. Or some of them they even choose what to practice or not to practice. And again, Pakistan is suffering in a very severe manners from this sectarism, and people have the different sects and different belief system that you cannot even find them from the original sources of the Quran and Sunnah. So, if you can tell me, your family was from what belief they were holding within Islamic principles.
I come from a Sunni background. I would say that, and I'm aware of what you're referring to, that many people claim to be Muslim but aren't practicing it. And obviously, coming into the Western country, whether it was US and Australia, I have come across many people who identify as progressive Muslims, liberal Muslims, or simply irreligious, but they hold on to the title of being a Muslim. I was never like that. Actually, it was when I realized that yes, I could be perhaps like that and not practice the religion, but still identify as a Muslim. But I actually felt that would be very hypocritical of me, because uh, uh, as far as it goes back in Pakistan, I come from a progressive, meaning progressive as in their educated background. Both my parents are educated with degrees, have careers there, and was living in different countries from a young age because of my parents' jobs as well, and which is why I wouldn't say that I was succumbing to the environment. Though I know that Pakistan is many people, when I tell them I'm from Pakistan and I've left the religion, they feel that I've just been subjected to the cultural version of Islam. But no, that's not the case, because my parents made it important since it was important. My father himself, though he was born into a Muslim home, he had his own revelation in the 80s when he became a devout Muslim, which is why he wanted.
So the point you're making, your father has his own version of Islam, and that's what you teach you as well. If you say he had his own revelation, that means he had his own version of Islam.
Not revelation. It's more so the fact that he was born into an irreligious household,
Uh-huh.
a religious Muslim household, and it's when he began doing his research, which was in the 80s, early 80s, about 14 years before I was even born, that he began going to scholars, reading the scriptures, reading the hadith and Quran, that they're converted. Sorry, not converted. He just became a more devout Muslim, actually practicing the faith regularly. And he made it a point to teach all of his children as well, not his version, meaning the version of the Quran that he deemed correct. So he did give us access to the scholars. I was reading the.
Can you tell me what sex, like what manhaj method he was following, what methodology he was following?
Again, the Sunni version of Islam. So we went to a Sunni mosque.
Okay.
We had Maulvis come into the house, and we would recite the Quran, read the translated versions in the native language of Urdu as well.
Mhm.
And yeah, I was doing that from a very young age.
So,
So
Sabina, if I ask you, your name is Sabina, right?
yes, yes.
Yeah, excellent. I'm really bad in pronouncing names. So what makes you, like, can you give us like top three reasons that makes you left Islam or leave Islam? And was there were reasons, say, mostly related to social perspective, or there were purely Islamic reason that you left it?
Uh, Meaning, what do you mean by social perspectives?
Because some people, they don't necessarily, because of Islamic reasons, somehow they're mistreated by the so-called Maulanas and the Islamic figures, by some people who claim to be Muslims, and then somehow they can't take the behavior, and they were mistreated, and they left the religion or from their culture, whatever it is. There are people who have gone through this horrible experience, and there are some people who generally couldn't find answers for their questions. um, from the scholars, from the people, or from the Muslims, and they decided to be atheists, or decided to change this title of their religion. So, I mean, they decided to even leave the faith. So, I want to know, like, your reasons, if you can tell us.
Oh, okay. Well, I wouldn't. Well, in terms of just talking to, I wouldn't. I didn't leave the religion. I know that because I had a negative experience with it, or I blamed religion for my negative experiences
So,
with
you don't.
with scholars or
Yeah, so you
uh,
don't blame religion for your negative experience with your, maybe with your, I'm sorry to say this, maybe with your family members, not exactly the correlative families, maybe uncle, chacha, uncle, and other people, or to the local figures. So you don't blame Islam for those reasons, right?
I don't blame Islam for the issues that I've had with my family or my mental health. Like that's a common misconception that I have. Like, I'll give you an example that many people have just seen this example when I give them that I'm blaming Islam for it. No, I'm actually asking a question. Obviously, with growing up with epilepsy and seizures and coming from a Muslim household, my family and friends they cared about me, and they told me you should pray to God. He will help you. He will take care of you. And actually, that with a questioning mind, this was when I was 10, 11 years old, and just simply asked, but the logic that you're giving me, so and the logic of a God, if he's the one who has the power to take away my illness, is he not also the one that he gave to me? Now, people have seen this question as me blaming God for my negative outcomes. I'm just curious to understand. I was actually just curious to understand the rationality behind what is going on, or their claims.
Okay.
And so it's more to do with that.
Well,
In
that's
terms of
one reason.
yeah, so it's to do with asking Islamic scholars or Maulvis.
Mhm.
The thing is that I did that in several countries because I've done that. Considering I've lived in multiple countries for my because of my parents' jobs,
Can
I've
you
asked one in
name few of these countries?
meaning when I was between 3 and 6, I lived in Sri Lanka. Between 10 and 12, I lived in Singapore. Between 16 to 19, I lived in the US, and I have been living in Australia since I was 20. So I've spoken to them in Pakistan, in the US, as well as in Australia, and gone to several just to ask them. A lot of the answers that I receive from them, it's just because though the answers were a lot of the time consistent, it
Okay.
doesn't mean that I would suddenly be accepting of those answers or consider them justified.
Can you share just the summary of those answers?
Meaning those were more Islam specific, and I was more curious about it. By that time, I had questioned the faith. If you when you ask me the three top reasons I left the faith is because of rationality and logic mainly. That it just failed to make sense to me, the premise of a God. Like let's give you an example.
Mhm.
Is just like let's see, the overall idea of a God, like specifically an Abrahamic God,
Mhm.
doesn't appear to be to me just like one worth worshipping when I actually try to critically analyze it. Like at first glance, the concept of a God sounds very appealing, a being who cares for you, constantly looking out for you, and always willing to forgive you for your mistakes. However, it is then the same being who then begins to dictate to you how to live your daily life, threatening punishment in the afterlife while still claiming to be the most caring being and making it obligatory for you to pray and worship him, something that's not necessarily needed for his own survival, but simply because he desires the praise and glory. Like the concept of this God for me has now changed from a loving and merciful being into more of a narcissistic personality who's attempting to control me via fear and emotional manipulation. And that was one of the main things for me. And I did take these type of questions
Okay.
to
The point, if I want to just comment on this, um, the problem with this understanding is when people say God is all loving and all merciful, this is actually wrong. This is actually wrong
yes,
because they don't complete the sentence. God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all merciful, all loving, but all just as well. You get my point? So,
okay.
for example, if Almighty God, He is not just, then He cannot be merciful. If He's not just, then His love is incomplete. How can I tell you? Now you said 3 points. Number one, He dictates our daily lives, right? Particularly, what Islam is. I will definitely represent Islamic point of view because I'm Muslim. What Islam is asking the people, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is asking people in terms of what kind of dictatorship they're referring to. This is the first point, because whatever is clear, as a Muslims and millions and billions, they don't feel that, and some of them they feel, but again they should explain it what kind of dictatorship they're talking about. That's one. The other thing, when Islam says, for example, pray, this praying is, we know very well that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to pray 5 times. Not necessarily he's asking us something that will benefit him. I'm sure you have heard these answers as well. There's something that benefits us as well. And if somebody put this himself in this picture, most of people, the Muslims, they feel pleasure in praying. They find peace in praying. And some people who don't understand the actual meaning of praying in the whole Islamic spirituality, they find it difficult to pray. These people, I'm not saying they're all ex-Muslims, so people who left Islam, they are people within the Muslim community. They don't pray regularly because they couldn't find the peace. And when you go and ask them, they say, okay, I will pray, but they don't pray. The reason is because they couldn't understand the main reason why they should pray. And when they pray, if they have khushu, they will regularly pray. The second point is dictatorship. I don't see any dictatorship in Islam, to be honest. In every law, if, for example, you're in Australia, in every law, there are do's and don't. In Islam, seem to have the same thing. So why people only question those things that Islam is subjecting to be impermissible? And if you analyze them logically, you will find those things logical. And the things, for example, Allah is allowing us to get involved, do it, and they're also okay. But those things that we are prohibited to not get involved, for example, fornication, drinking of alcohol, eating of the pork, so on and so forth, those things are very limited. If you list the things Islam allows and things Islam doesn't allow, the things Islam allow, the list will be much bigger than the things Islam doesn't allow. You get my point? So we don't have that limitations. And again, I don't see any dictatorship. If you can give me one example of dictatorship you can see in Islam, then you can inshallah tell me. And by the way, you said narcissistic nature. Then we can say every nature, every government, every system, every institution narcissistic because they ask us to do certain things. For example, that I will give you the example of traffic light. Of course, there is no car, there is nothing, and the traffic light is red. And you cannot say this government is wrong and what they're doing, the system is wrong. I want to go. You get my point? Oh, they're narcissistic. They want to control us. They want to control our minds. There's nobody I can just cross the line. You get my point? But we don't do that. But I want to know, like, what kind of dictatorship you see in Islam?
More so, that was just an example that it is setting out a list of criteria that you need to follow, a lot of which did not make rational sense why you are to follow it, or understanding the different dimensions of it. Basically, that is what I guess Islam does to a greater extent than Christianity, what Christianity is today. But it's more so, the point over here is just the egotistical nature that this
Uh,
being is asking
Give me
you
an example.
to kind of worship you, pray to him multiple times a day, and it's just like not for your, or because he needs it for his own survival, but simply for the praise and glory. And that is
No,
that itself just shows an egotistical nature.
the point is, there's a verse in the Quran in Surah Al-Qabut. Allah SWT said, Allah is not in need of your prayer and supplications. And
Exactly.
if you even look at it logically, even if you look at it logically, Allah is not in need. What our prayers will, do to him? Nothing. But there are certain things, for example, every time there's a request, it doesn't mean the person who requested is receiving help. The person who's been requested, the receiver is not always in the need of help. The doctor, the dentist, they will request you, please open your mouth, right? It doesn't mean the doctor is benefiting when you're opening your mouth. No. Same goes to prayer. As I mentioned earlier, the prayer is a pillar of Islam, and there are many millions and billions of Muslims, even non-Muslim, they find peace while they're praying. Me personally, it's not that psychologically I have treated myself in this way. No, that's not the case. For example, when I pray, I can communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People shouldn't see prayer as a yoga practice. When people understand what Muslims say in the prayer, then they understand it. For example, let me give an example that in the prayer, while we are praying after Surah Fatiha, we must recite one more ayah from the Quran. Sahih? So when we recite, and the ayah is speaking about respect your mother, the ayah is speaking about respect your parents, respect the neighbors, be just, be kind. You get my point? Those are
Yes.
things we need to be reminded on a daily basis. And I think this is something good. You get my point? If I don't pray, or there is no prayer, or there's options given to people, if you want to pray, pray. If you don't want to pray, pray. There are options in Islam. The prayer people consider there's only fard prayer. Of course, there are obligatory prayer, there are additional prayer, and you can have a sunnah prayer, you can have nawafil as much as you want to. You can even do tarawih in the Ramadan. But the main reason of the prayer, there can be many. But the reason I want to give you based on our both understanding how we understand each other is something good. That's why people who learn the law, they're lawyers, they're very kind and good people because they know the law. So similarly, if Muslims can recite the guidance which is revealed in the Quran on a daily basis and they understand it and they practice it, then I think there's something good. In the prayer, we don't just stand there, you said nothing and then you go back and no, we recite and we recite beautifully. And there are people who have written this recitation even though they are non-Muslims and they enjoy it. You get my point? It's not like
Yeah.
all bad. Beside the prayer, for example, zakat is also, if we analyze zakat, it's something good. Every government has a tax system. Every government in the world. In Islam, being an institution, there's a huge misconception with people. They think Islam is just a religion, a spiritual religion. No, Islam is a constitution. You get my point? So similarly, zakat system, if you're poor, it's fine, you're exempted. If you're not poor, you have the wealth, 2.5, you have to pay percent of your wealth. And that doesn't go back to you. It doesn't say you have to pay to the leaders. No, to the poor people. And the first people you need to start are your neighbors. Fasting. Trust me, there are many doctors today that are suggesting to fast. And I can share my personal experience with you. I hope I'm not speaking too much, and I do give you time, and I will definitely give you time, no problem. Before the month of fasting, I was working at home, and every 5 minutes I would just drink something and eat something. And even though I wasn't hungry, and I felt that I need to drink something. You have sometimes those times, right? And trust me, I couldn't even work. I couldn't write articles. I couldn't watch even videos. It was difficult because I needed to drink something. I need to eat something. And now in the month of fasting, I'm able to control that. You get my point? And of course, there's a huge philosophy and there are scientific and Islamic reasons why we fast. The simple reason is we fast that to control ourselves and be more good Muslims. And not we fast that we need to wait for Ramadan and be aggressive Muslim. In the month of fast, it's basically programming. And if you look at it holistically, there are even non-Muslim fasting. They want to control their anger. And even psychology today, they tell us if somebody control, something from evening to morning, and they control for the 40 days, they will be able to control and have that nature for the complete of their life, for the rest of their life. So again, there's something good. I want you to give me one example where Islam dictates the followers or the human beings.
When I say when I said the sentence, it dictates to you how to live your daily life. It is saying what it is the perception of Allah for you to live a correct lifestyle. It's saying this. I think you're just taking that word particularly out of context. It's not as if
I'm not taken out of context. For example, if you say Islam is telling you to live this way of your life, right? Correct. But there's any other institution that's telling you live as the way you want to live. Is there any institution?
it's deeming it more so. It's deeming it the correct way, that this specific way is the correct way to live your life.
Okay.
And other alternative ways are incorrect. That's what I was trying to
But
emphasize.
every institution will tell you this is the correct way to go ahead. If it's the,
But
if it's a liberal, if it's a rebellious, if it's religious, if it's even atheistic way, even atheists will tell you this is the correct way to go ahead. No institution will tell you. You see this is how it is, but you don't have to worry, you can go ahead with somebody else, and you can go ahead with other system of life. No, every institution will tell you this is the only correct way. Like, name one institution will tell you no, you can choose any of them.
It depends on when you say when one is the correct way. It's like one thing can be a correct way. It can be it can be a very narrow tunnel or a very broad bridge, and like that's what I'm emphasizing. That with Islam and in particular, it's just very narrow in terms of kind of things like how you're supposed to dress and the benefits that they attempt to explain to me why you dress that way. Those have never made any justifications to me or
Similarly,
rationality to me.
this is what I'm saying. Even if you look at like regular, this is a secular view of dressing. Secular view of dressing will tell you you shouldn't dress, you shouldn't cover yourself. You get my point? So again, there is a shouldn't. Secular view of dressing, they will tell you you don't have to cover. You get my point? Or you
Yes.
don't need to cover, or you shouldn't cover. In fact, in many secular countries, if the woman is dressing out of choice, they don't let her dress in that way. You get my point? So even Islam will tell you do this and don't do this. Secularism will tell you do this and don't do this. In fact, if you go ahead to the part that where it said don't do it, you will be in prison. And you have the example of France and Germany, and you have the many schools recently in
Except those
France.
aren't secular countries, though. That's the main point. It's the fact that many countries they still have religious influence. A very good example of this is the U.S. That though they claim to try to not let religion influence their laws, it is still actively having an influence in the parliament. It's not aligned. There's not exactly a single country aside from New Zealand that I know that is truly secular in nature.
I'm giving the example of France. Do you think France is secular?
France is not a secular country. It very much holds religion as a main part or main influence. Like it is 2.5 times more likely for a Christian to get a job than for a Muslim to. That is still saying an influence of religion.
This is what I'm saying. If in the France a woman want to dress just like a Muslim, she's allowed to dress in the school.
Meaning, I know in France that they have placed the ban on the burqa, which is I get, which is a different argument altogether. And
So,
in various countries have their own reasoning for it.
this is what I'm saying. So Islam has its own reasoning to say you should dress in this way. You get my point?
Yeah, Islam has a reasoning to dress in that way, and I said that I've been exposed to various justifications of it. But just because a reasoning has been provided doesn't mean that I have to necessarily agree with that reasoning or consider that reasoning to be invalid. Basically, because like various reasonings can be given. I
No,
mean, a Christian can come up to us today and say, "This is the reasoning why Christianity is the correct religion," but I'm assuming neither of us will follow that direction
no.
of Christians coming up.
We don't look at things like that such narrow in a narrow way. In Islam, what we see is we see a bigger picture. When we look at Islam, we don't look at only hijab, we don't look only to pray. We see the whole Islam, the holistically. The existing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran and the Sunnah, the life of Muhammad sallam, and then there are small portions. The small portion we may not be agree with, right? But
Yes.
when we see the other bigger portion, then we accept it. Okay, this point is also fine. Let me give you example of your mother. For example, our mothers, they are most of the time they are right and they guide us. Sometimes, due to our limited understanding and immaturity, we go against them. And when they tell this is the right way to do it, sometimes they force us to do it, and then we don't get it why they're saying, but later we understood what they say. For example, me, I hated going to school. I hate it. And my mother will push me on a daily basis to go to school. You get my point? I could argue, I can deny I don't have to go to school. I can do business without even going to school. There are people in Pakistan, you know very well, they are very huge business people, man. They have a huge businesses without even writing their own name. So I can present the argument, but today I understood no, I was wrong, my mom is right. So similarly, there are things in the in Islam that we may not understand it today, or we may not understand the whole wisdom behind it. Then Alhamdulillah, we follow it. One day will come that we will understand it, and I can give you many example of that. Coming to the hijab, hijab is nothing. Hijab is most to do with the society, and it's not. This is wrong to say if a woman cover herself and then she will be protected. No, there are many other reasons for the hijab. You get my point? But if Allah
Yeah.
is
Yes.
asking me, If Allah is asking me to leave your beard, and I say, why should I leave my beard? I can shave it. You get my point? So,
Yes.
and I don't have to go for scientific reasons. Today, the BBC says those who have beard, they're more cleaner. There's a BBC report, you know. There's again
I
report
Yeah. But the
that
main thing that I'm trying to that was just an example of a specific belief going back to how Islam dictates your life. But but there's no point. I guess for me, there's no point in going into specific Islamic beliefs and practices that I disagreed with. Which when I can't when to in order to believe in Islam even as a religion and all of the beliefs and practices, first you must believe in a God that exists.
okay. So
Meaning
the
that you must believe
you
that
don't
a
believe.
God exists. And I was unable to go past that basic premise that a God is even in existence. It is more when I just looked at the questioning and the various kinds of just contradictions and irrationality and logic, it was just more easy for me, meaning it was more reasonable for me to believe that it is just a man-made concept, particularly one to dictate and control people, because you can't deny that. There's so many people in this world have been willing to give up so much for their beliefs in a God, and have been coerced into doing so many things simply because they assume that their god has told them to do that.
No, I
And
mean,
it is a very good people a way to control people.
as I said earlier, we are seeing this in a very narrow ways, and this can see our this can already define our wisdoms. For example, if people are forced to pay zakat, this is something good. If people are forced to be kind to their neighbor, this is something good. I mean, which institution, being secular or non-secular, religious or non-religious, can say, "Oh, and there's a book they have written or anything to guide their followers to do whatever they like to do." And if you're following this narrow or this definition, then I think we are facing much bigger problem than the solution. For example, even if today people have their choices and they can do whatever they want to do, they are pedophile. They say, "Let me rape little babies." You get my point? They are
Yeah.
killers and murderers and terrorists. They want to kill people, and they say this is fine. We need a law to justify what's wrong and what's right, and we need a law to say, okay, this is what you should do, and this is what you shouldn't do. Otherwise, we'll be just like animals and following our own instincts. And people find pleasure in killing people. So you can't just logically tell them this is wrong because they will tell you based on what definition, based on what law. So that's why Islam is mostly giving the Islamic Sharia, which is mean Islamic law, to the
Yes.
people do this and don't do this. This is for the goodness of the people.
I
Similarly,
understand where
today,
you're
I hope you understand me. Today, people are fighting for democracy, and you can see there are many wars being waged for the democracy, and they want to fight. There's no other reason, only democracy. And we can come back to even Pakistan. People have been killed by the drones in the schools in Waziristan and all those things. For what? Because they want them to follow democracy. They want them to implement in their life democracy. Democracy is also a way of life, and Islam is similar way of life. Why I follow Islam? I can have my own reasons. Why a person is following democracy? He has his own reasons. But to say Islam is unjust, then I can argue based on what? If you say Islam is unjust, you must have a justice. So a person need to say based on this argument, Islam is not just because justice mean A and B. But when we don't have A and B, then how we can even claim that Islam is unjust? So that's one. But again, the main point is you don't believe in God. These are actually not even something that we should talk about. If you don't mind, if you allow me to ask you, what makes you to not believe in God?
it's I guess like first I want to address something that you just brought up in terms of morality and creating laws and justice in society. One
Mhm.
thing that I guess want to be clear is that what a lot of religious people think about atheists is that we're moralless, because religion, be it whatever religion, whether you're Buddhist, or sorry, whether you're a Hindu, a Muslim, or a Christian, you use your holy books and scriptures to tell based on which your moralities is created. What atheists believe in terms of morality, that morality is not subjective based on what the time period is on earth. Instead, we believe morality to be objective.
For example,
Give you an example, meaning if I was to steal something from you, and would want and would say that it would be unjust for someone to steal something from me. It is clearly saying that I hold a different moral value than you do. uh, to say that morality is objective, everything would fall under the empathetic principle of treat others how you want to be treated, and that is what is best for society. Like it would be best for a society in various levels to just follow that basic principle.
Okay, so that's the point. I lived in Germany. The Nazi
Yes.
government, they saw best for society to kill all Jews, and they incinerated 6 million Jews. So do they have moral justification for what they did?
If again, they're not following treat others how you want to be treated, because according to that specific principle, they would be okay with another organization coming and slaughtering them. They're
Okay,
clearly were not okay with that because they wanted to rule, so
yeah.
they weren't following that objective morality, or that treat others how you want to be treated.
So there are people I know, since I'm studying psychology, there are people who want to be beaten. They have different sexual lifestyle, and there are people, they have different psychological disease. And if we gather all those people in one society, and they want to be treated in that way, so that's a moral justification for them.
No, it wouldn't be moral. Creating a society in which everybody wants to be beaten, that society will not last. It will not. It will. That society in itself will become extinct and just be destroyed.
So this is what I'm
Uh,
saying. This is what I'm
in
saying.
order to create
For them,
the
it's
continued
moral.
existence and peaceful existence, we
No,
can see what is best for us as human beings in nature when it comes to biology and psychology. That why when a person is wants to kill themselves and is suicidal, and they think that they try to rationalize that aspect of themselves, we know that is unhealthy. Because
so
if everybody in
this
this
is
world
what I'm saying.
would
This is more
feel that way.
This is more subjective. In Japan, people do suicide and they feel this is the best thing to do for them. And there are some macro nation, they allow suicide. They say, okay, somebody's waiting there, somebody's looking up to you, and they can see that you're doing suicide peacefully, you're allowed to do suicide. You get my point? So that's their moral justification. So how you define morality based on subjective personal reasoning, it can't be, because in Japan, people say suicide is allowed. If Japan were to rule the people, they say, okay, you can do suicide, for example, right? So how we can have this morality based on the personal justification, or you can say this personal justification, of course, a personal justification. How we can have that
It's
morality?
it's not personal justification. It would fall back on that basic principle. It is like, yes, I'm okay with that person going to commit suicide, but if I'm depressed and suicidal, if I had the same life experiences of that person and was would feel depressed, would I want help from another person, or would I want to simply suffer by myself? That can even go back to that basic principle.
So this is
It would not and it can't exactly said that you can't say that when you keep using institutionalized like governments and what they allow in this world. We know for a fact that governments is corrupt. I mean, I come from Pakistan, the most corrupt government, who's not out for the interests of the people, but out for the personal interest.
I'm not using government. For example, I will give you example. In the time before the time of Muhammad upon him peace, there were people killing their own daughters. So do you think that was wrong, or they were doing something good?
That was wrong. They're not working in the interest of, they're working in their own personal interest, but they're not following the what do you call, what is objective morality or the basis principle.
So this is what I'm saying. They thought this is good for them.
You can easily try to justify various things for yourself. However, when it reaches a certain point, especially particularly with when you are impacting another third party believers. But now we're going back to subjective morality, and and the laws come into place to protect civil. When you create laws in a society, in a secular government, they're created to protect all citizens and their best interests.
So this is
Hypothetically, in the secular government that
no,
I
no,
believe in.
no. The point is, if the majority of the citizen they decided to kill a baby, so is it moral or immoral?
First of all, if as in the time of Muhammad, they were killing female babies. That's if everybody was doing that, that society would have gone extinct soon, because females are needed necessary to reproduce.
The
So
point
obviously, that
I
was
mean,
immoral.
no, that's the second question. Whether they're gonna live or they're gonna vanish, or that's a different question. We are speaking about morality. Do you think that's moral or immoral?
Immoral.
That's what I'm saying before. That people was moral. If you make it
They
subjective,
try to justify it, but it cannot be justified. Certain
again,
things.
if
And
you, if I, for example, we both have subjective morality. and I can say this is something moral for you, this is immoral for me. So there is no be agreement between both of us, even between you and me. So it's more
When we
subjective.
go Yes, when we go into subjective morality, I mean, we live, you living in Germany, me living in Australia, the multicultural society, the subjective morality exists on various topics. Let's take a controversial one, kind of like gay marriage or abortion
Mhm.
over there. In terms of a secular society, people of differing opinions can still coexist, and that is being proven. Like, you can follow your religious beliefs, I can follow my disbelief, and still live our separate lives. When it comes to topics which are more controversial and
No,
need to
if
understand.
atheism dictates the whole world, for example, if atheism dictates a country or the world, then we can have a bigger picture problem, because right now atheism is not dictating anything. So that's why we have small issues which society they can live along with each other. If the society or group of atheists, for example, let's imagine the whole Germany is atheistic country, and they decide to kill all their babies, and they feel this is good for them. For example, China, they feel like, okay, we are running, we have a lot of people in the country, we're running out of space and buildings, let's kill this number of people, and this is something good for them. So is it morally justified?
Based on the morality and objective morality, it's not justified.
So this is what I'm saying. So if you take out the religion and revelation out of the picture, then you will have all these problems.
That's not necessarily a religion. It's kind of like implying that the only thing that is stopping you from committing any negative actions is your religious beliefs. Like, hypothetically, the only reason you're not committing incest, if you even if you have a sibling, is because your religion is saying not to. Otherwise, you would completely go for it. There are other pictures, like, why is incest not prominent, or why is it not as widespread? Why is the isolated cases of it going into treated as medical mental illness and not simply allowed? That
No,
goes
this
into
is-
more different aspects.
no, we are talking about much bigger level, right? You were speaking about, you're questioning the Islamic institution. So we're not talking
Yeah.
about what's happening today or what's going to happen tomorrow. We are speaking about institution. So institution, we have to give a bigger picture, and then we should put the institution into the work and see how it works. You get my point? So when we put atheism in subjective morality and we cannot find that's going to work, if it works, then it will be horrible for people. For example, for Chinese, for Indians, and for example in Pakistan, if they decide to, okay, let's kill all Waziristani, and this is something good for them. For example, people, there are some mental sick people, they want to commit suicide. There are some people, they want to be a slave of somebody. There are some sick people, and then they say, okay, we want this, and they are the one ruling. So of course they want to implement the whole thing on others. If there's nothing right and wrong, which is of course transcended, which has nothing to do, I mean, which is out from the outside this our own universe or cosmos, then that's really a morality. Because why it is? Because it's nothing to do with us. It's not subject to us. It's coming from outside of our own reality. That's what Islam is actually presenting. And if you look at all the Islamic principles from A to Z, you will not find one principle going against the human morality. If you can find one, maybe you can name me.
Oh, it's probably the example that came off the top of my head was homosexuality and its condemnation. Though it's the fact that uh, though that will just go and diverge into a different argument altogether. But the fact is that claiming that atheists ruling the world will be negative, I mean, statistics of that, what do you call it, suggest differently, that the countries which have the highest rates of atheism or disbelief today tend to be the more peaceful ones,
For
kind of like Canada, New Zealand. Atheists make them a very small percentage of the prison population, even. So the figures are actually going against the logic that a religion and government is a good idea.
to be honest, I don't really believe in the statistics. The reason why, because if somebody said the black people are evil because they are having the majority of prison population in the US, I won't believe it, because most of the white people, they just put black people in the prison. So you get my point. The statistics are very subject and they're very naive. If you look at statistics, they were saying UK is much bigger in crime than US. And when I look at the statistics, they were actually in the whole 1 month. There was one day in the UK there were 6 people killed, and in New York there were 5 people killed, and the rest of the months there were 40 people killed in New York, and there are only 5 people killed in the UK. And the site says the UK is bigger in crime. because they took only one that day in the statistic and they put it up. So statistics can be manipulated and they can be very, naive and justifying what they want to do. But anyway, I want to come to the point that what makes you to disbelieve in God?
Okay. Because again, like the overall concept of a god, it's because there's no valid evidence or proof of him. Maybe more accurately is the fact that I can't disbelieve in something that I don't believe existed to begin with, or the quantity of proof. Like, and even and what even made me more at a younger age, what made me more skeptical about this, whether even this god existed, was the story of Adam and Eve and how the human race formulated to believe that we were inherently all a product of incest, with no explanation of why there are different races or ethnicities. It's that in itself was very skeptical, and that was when I was 14 years old.
Yeah. Have you read the Quran?
Oh, sorry, you're breaking out a bit.
Yeah. Have you read the Quran?
Yes, yes.
Okay, you never find any verse in the Quran which explains why there are so many nations and tribes.
Sorry.
You couldn't find any verse in the Quran which explain why there are so many nations and tribes.
It those were more accurately, it was not specific as to why there are different ethnicities and variations.
I mean, variation can be created, right? You can say. Let me give you example.
And to believe that, yeah,
Let me example
yeah,
Karachi, right? Let me give you a simple example of my own tribes. Okay, I came from.
yeah.
Do you know that I'm from Afghanistan?
Kazakhstan.
No, Afghanistan.
Oh, Afghanistan.
We are
Yes.
neighbors. So let me give you example of my country and the small tribe in my country. Okay, I'm from Afghanistan, and then there's if you know, a place next to Chatral. You know Chatral, right? From
Yes.
Chatral, there's a Nuristan, and I'm from that Nuristan. In Nuristan, there were only few people, few brothers, okay, and we're talking only 200 years back. These few brothers, they got married and they are children, and they got married from different tribes. And trust me, within that three brothers, and within 200 years, they had different tribes and different variation. So this is due to if you read history and if you read especially human history, you can simply answer this question: why there are so many variation, there's so many ethnicities. This is something, the most basic historical class you can get. Uh, when we have children of children, and so on and so forth, they moved somewhere else, and how they create tribes and they create languages, and how we end up to have now today. We have Punjabis, we have Pashtuns, and we have Tajik, and we have Uzbek, we have Indians, and different. For example, India and Pakistan. How Pakistan was created in 1940, I think 1947 or 1947.
47. 47.
Yeah, I think I'm good in quoting things. 1947, Pakistan was created. Today we have Pakistanis. Before 1971, there was no Pakistani. You get my point? So this is
Yes.
something the most simple. You didn't give me single evidence to say because of this reason I don't believe in God.
It would be more so because of all of these factors coming in together, because there is no, though there it is rationally understandable why a person would want to believe in a god. There's no rational reasoning or evidence like to say that that a god exists,
Okay.
or more so. So
This,
again, I can't say I disbelieve something for which I don't believe there's even enough evidence to believe in the first place.
good. I say you require more faith to disbelieve in God than to believe in God. Do you agree with me?
uh you'll have to elaborate why you think
Okay.
that.
I give a statement a few days ago. I said a person require more faith to disbelieve in God than believe in God. To believe in God, you require less faith, because you can have reasoning, deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, and you can conclude there's a God. And even you can have scientific reasonings, and you require more faith to believe there is no God, because you will conclude to neglect and ignore all the deductive reasonings to say there is no God. So let me say this: personally speaking, as far as I see, you don't have any substantial evidence. Because of this evidence, I don't believe in God. Is it true?
Yes, I don't believe in a God because there's no evidence of a God's existence.
Okay. If what if I give you evidence, mostly deductive, and would you can you come along with me?
Yes, by all means, give me evidence and I'll give you my opinion on it.
Excellent, excellent. Why not? And do you believe on scientific facts? Do you believe?
Yes, I do believe in scientific theories such as evolution. Yes.
Do you believe on there are scientific facts? Do you believe facts and science?
I do believe science, but it had little to do with why I left. It was just the constant contradictions of like even the human being purpose on Earth based on what this God is claiming
This
for
is
it.
this is something else we can discuss. It's no problem. But I will tell you my opinion. I don't believe there is something a scientific fact. I will
Okay.
explain why. Do you know why? I can say we have enough scientific reasoning to believe so and so. You get my point?
I
We
understand where you're what you're implying. Yes.
Good. So we cannot say this is scientific fact. We can say we have scientific reasoning to believe so and so. For example, the center of the universe, the geocentrism theory, the black hole, the Big Bang theory, and all of them, we cannot say they're scientific facts. Same goes to evolution. The way we can say we have enough scientific reasoning to say this is a theory of evolution. We cannot say scientific fact. That's number one. It's clear. Number two, you should know that we have not only one source of reasoning. For example, there's not only one source to reach the conclusion. That's the premises positivism and naturalism. So we
Yes.
have
Yes.
deductive reasoning, and I hope you believe in deductive reasoning. And deductive reasoning is the most simple thing. For example, Sabina is in Australia. She was born in Pakistan. She was raised in Pakistan. Her parents are from Pakistan, right? And
Yes.
then, so we can simply conclude not necessarily that Pakistan is in Asia. You get my point?
Yes. Yes.
Because we can say, okay, for example, second reasoning that Sabrina was born from a mother. So since Sabrina was born from a mother and her mother was born from a mother, so that means deductively her mother was also born from a mother and she
Yeah.
has a mother, right? So simple as this, and in a more in a linguistic way, the deductive reasoning, the premises should be from the premises itself. So let me, if you, I hope you understand that. So let me give this based on this reasoning. We examine the universe, and we have many reasoning. We can go to the consciousness. We can go on A, B, C, D. No, we don't have to do that. We can simply, I believe, we can simply discuss both of us, and hopefully we will reach a conclusion on the origin of the universe. So based on this deductive reasoning, and of course the scientific theory and scientific reasoning, that everything that began to exist, it has a cause, and
Yes.
nobody can deny that. So we can really think that universe began to exist. That means universe had a cause, right? It called theory of causality and the reasoning. So now let's put it in the reasoning, in scientific reasoning, we can say deductive reasoning and logic. I think rationally we will conclude four reasoning for the universe. Number one, universe came from nothing. Do you agree with that? That's the
Yes.
could be. I mean, we don't know. Could be, right? Number two, universe created itself. Again, we don't know. It could be. So we can examine this fact. Number three, universe was there since time immemorial, since the beginning, since infinity. It was there, simple. But again, this is a very limited thinking to say universe was there. Because it go against the first principle. Or you can say with the same principle of third number three, the universe created itself. You get my point? The universe just pop up. It was created. They created itself somehow. Like for example, it can happen. We are just
Yeah.
giving theories. And number four, the universe was created. You can have this conclusion as well. So if you agree with me and you can walk in the same path with me, we can examine each claims based on deductive reasoning. We don't have to go for unscientific and all those things. If needed, we can go, because when we reach the conclusion and to the truth, you have to use all the empirical and naturalistic reasoning. You have to examine the things. Number one, do you believe universe came from nothing?
I, in terms of this, I wouldn't say that I'm when by this point in which I researched the alternatives to things, kind of like evolution, where I researched that when I was very much skeptical. When I looked into the origins of the universe, I wouldn't say that I'm as educated as many other people
Mhm.
in terms of these particular aspects, because like I said, science had little to do with the reasoning, because I know tons of people who've left faith because of they looked into things like evolution very much in rigorous detail or this. But since it didn't play as big of a role, I wouldn't say that I could I would be able to answer these questions the same extent as other people more knowledgeable.
You say you're not sure whether universe created itself or it came from nothing.
I would be more so that I have not researched the existence of the universe, because I've been presented this question before, and my answer has just been the same. That it is not necessary from it wasn't, since it wasn't a crucial road in my crucial
No, I
point
mean,
in my journey.
it's a crucial point in our arguments, right? It's in our discussion. But now I'm just
Yeah,
asking, you don't have to say, okay, yes, I believe, I don't. You can just say, yes, I do believe, I don't believe, based on
I
logic. I'm not saying based on
yeah
the. So you believe.
I would say that,
Mhm.
meaning in terms of the origin of the universe, there are various ways that it could have come about,
No,
and
but
each and yes, scientific and the theories that have been created and tested out. That's why, like, obviously there's a difference between a regular theory that we create today and a scientific theory that is largely an explanation what many deem to be a fact, kind of like gravity.
so,
In terms of the model that has been created by science for to explain the origins of the universe, that is the Big Bang theory. There are people who do believe that, and people who don't.
my question is the even the Big Bang. The my point is the. Do you think the universe came out of nothing? It just happened. For example,
I d-
do you believe the universe
I
came out of
wouldn't say
nothing?
that. The thing is that I lacked the reasoning, the evidence presented from both sides to even create my own conclusion. So I would say I don't know the origins of the universe,
So
and I would
no,
admittedly claim that.
no, no. We are using logic, right? I'm saying based on
Yeah.
deductive reasoning. I didn't say based on scientific reasoning. Scientific reasoning, we
Okay.
can have second talk about that. But I'm saying based on deductive reasoning, can you conclude the universe came out of nothing?
I don't believe that. No.
No. So you cannot conclude the universe came out of nothing.
No.
I agree with you. I agree the same thing. I don't believe universe came out of nothing. I believe because nothing produced nothing. Even in mathematical scientific way, nothing is nothing. So you can't have something from out of nothing. You can't have the pen out of nothing. The pen can't just pop up. You get my point? There has to be
Yeah.
some cause, and the cause, raw materials, and all those things. Nothing produce nothing. So nothing is always nothing. You get my point? If you have no husband, you have husband. What? How's it work? Are you married?
Oh no, no.
So
No.
if you see you're single and you're not single, does it work? So it's the same thing, right?
I'm single. I'm single.
This is what I'm saying. I mean, you have the opportunity to look at some good guys in. Hopefully, you can marry them in future. So now we have second conclusion: the universe created itself. Number one argument is false. Number one reason is false. The universe cannot come out of nothing. There has to be something to create the universe or cause the universe. Number two, universe created itself. Again, this fallacy is not true because nothing can create itself. Again, my pen cannot create itself. There has to be some other reason. Your mother cannot give to birth to herself. You didn't give birth to yourself. So you were created. The reasons were our mothers. You get my point? The universe did not create itself. Number two, universe was not there since time memorial, since infinity, because we know universe started, it began its existence. Even if it was there since the time beginning, again, it has to have a cause, because what science says, everything that began to exist or everything that exists, that must have a cause to exist. So the last argument we conclude a universe was created.
Okay.
Oh, if I mean I understand that you might be tired because you spoke so long. If you want to talk about this next time, I'm okay with that. About the cause of the universe existing of Almighty God, I'm okay with that.
No, no. I know what reasoning that you were going to conclude at, that it was created by another being,
Yep.
and that is one, that is the belief of all theists, of course.
No,
However, that
one of the conclusion we can have is this. Yeah.
yeah, yes, of course. And then there are other models to explain that.
For example.
Being an atheist today, me being of example, the Big Bang theory is a model that has been created to explain
No,
the origins of the universe.
no, we are speaking about the cause of the universe. We're not speaking about the process, the metaphysical process. You get my point? The Big Bang theory, the secondary separation, their process, how the universe form itself. But we are speaking about
Yes.
the cause of the universe. What caused the Big Bang? You get my point? So we have the only conclusion: the universe was created by something that was uncreated. Some universe cause. There was a cause for the universe. So I
That is,
mean, if you're okay, we can continue. If you're not okay, it's okay. We can have second discussion even tomorrow. This time, tomorrow's the weekend. I feel you seem to be a bit tired, and
no,
I'm
no, it's fine. It's fine. It is more so the fact is what caused the creation. It doesn't necessarily have to be a third being or party or like an almighty figure that ultimately caused creation. Many people have said it's forces or energy that created the universe, and then it comes back to kind of the logic. Being an atheist, I know that this is actually something that I've been this is when people have brought this argument to me. The first thing that has often come into my head is because the reason that many theists the reason that people do also believe in a religion is because it provides an explanation tentatively for everything, because you know who created the universe, you know your own pathway and your purpose in life, and what it is, and a lot of things have been just set out for you. Again, I would use the word dictate here, but like more
it will
accurately,
not be the
it's just like,
problem. You can say set out for us. You can say that we
yes.
we name that as a guidance.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you've been guided with what your purpose in life is and your various roles and responsibilities. That is not something that I would ever need as an atheist. I ask myself those big questions, like what would my purpose be in life if I were to leave Islam? And I was, and it's like, just because we assume life has a purpose doesn't mean it necessarily does.
Okay. So
We exist
the point,
here today.
the first point we're missing is we didn't conclude. So you believe the universe as a cause, and the cause.
Yeah, it's just one of the several questions. Like, well, then if you don't believe in God, who created the universe? If you don't believe in God, then what is your purpose of existence
So
today? If you
that
don't believe in God, then so on and so
then
forth.
something else that we can, as I said earlier, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not here to, as I said earlier, I'm not here to prove that I'm the right and you're the wrong one. You get my point?
It's Yeah, I understand that. It's
This
I
is,
guess like just going back to this, then it would be
not my point. This is not my point to either prove something. My point
yes,
is to have a proper understanding, and where I can give you what I believe what I consider, and I can share my knowledge. You can share your knowledge, and then we conclude with something. And of course, you're presenting your own thinking, and I present, of course, my own thinking as well, as which is being guided by the Islamic, which is influenced by Islamic principles. And that's the second question: why we are here, and why God created us, and all that. The second question. But you said there is no reason to believe in God. There is no evidence to believe in God. I give you deductive reasoning, and this evidence, there's a conceptual evidence. You have many types of evidence. You have empirical evidence. You have conceptual evidence. So I give you conceptual evidence that there is a God.
yeah, I understand. Okay, as evidence that this is a god, I would say that it more lines. There's nothing to support this kind of claim that it was a god that created the universe. There are various theories that come into play here with how the universe created. I'm not a science wit as a lot of my peers would be to bring you those theories, but multiple exist as to how, and God can play into one of them.
Okay, so
Uh,
if
it's
for
not
that,
exactly hardcore physical
yeah.
proof that
And for
it
that
has to
reason,
be the only answer that God did this.
okay, for that
More
reason,
accurate.
if you want to do your research and then come back and discuss all those theories, I will be okay with that.
Yeah, sure,
So we can.
absolutely.
The point is, if we are jumping from the institution to the cause of the universe, and then we jump to something else, then we jump to the evolution, then we jump to why God created us and why there's the evil, as you mentioned, the disease and all those things. There will be so many topics and so many subjects to discuss. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, we can have another session. It's okay. We can talk tomorrow. We can talk the other day, and we can find a richer conclusion. It's totally fine. I'm okay with that. We can choose a subject and talk about that. If you want to do a research about the universe and how many theories are there and what reasons do we have to believe the universe was created in this way, and we can discuss those things. It's fine. If you're okay, since we spoke for about 1 hour or more than 1 hour, I'm okay with that to have a second session with you.
Oh, absolutely. I would enjoy talking to you. This has been a actually very good conversation.
Since we are neighbors, I mean, in the home country, so of course you have rights over me. I
Thank
should
you.
take care of you. That's what it is, right? Yeah. Okay. And thank you so much. Are you okay if you want me to share this with people? If you're not okay, I will not share it. Since it's been a very
Uh,
discussion.
yeah, it has. It has. Just yes, by all means, you can share it on your YouTube channel. Just one thing. My name should just in the title of the video, so it's not that searchable. My name should not be included. I have no issue with my name being presented in the
The
video.
title, I will put that title on this video.
Uh, considering I'm assuming you're still speaking to Harris tomorrow.
Yeah,
Uh,
I have to make an appointment with him and speak to him as well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's just of discussions with an ex-Muslim, I guess.
Okay. So I will try to think some, in YouTube, I know people are watching this later, right? In YouTube, you have to have a, like, clickbait title. Otherwise, people won't watch it.
The Muslim versus ex-Muslim. Like that sounds like a debate.
But let people come in and see it, that there can be a very peaceful, respectful, nice conversation between Muslims and ex-Muslims.
That actually proves to be more and more. I think you've noticed that it occurs that it's like it's more prominent in a multicultural society for this kind of friendly discussion to occur, or like in a progressive environment as opposed to a very conservative one.
No,
I
no,
would say.
I mean, this depends upon a person's education and his upbringing and how much he understands Islam. The Prophet, upon him be peace, he never had such aggressive conversation with people who even left the religion or something like that, or they who doubted the religion. In fact, they come up and he shared with them and he talked to them. The people who have come up to them, he give them different reasoning. For example, a man who comes and say, I want to commit a fornication. He says, okay, would you feel good if somebody do zina to your sister? He says, no. He said, then don't do it to other people. You get my point? So he gave different reason, and of course he was compassionate, loving, caring towards people and towards even non-Muslims. We don't have a single evidence that he shouted over somebody, who he got mad over somebody, he insulted someone. No, we don't have a single evidence, not from the Muslim sources, from non-Muslim sources, non-historical evidence. So following that example, it's my duty to be kind. And overall, we are neighbors. And in Islam, it's my duty to be kind to my neighbors. Right? So I will speak to you again. I think definitely I will put this title. It's more clickbait, but hopefully when people come and see it, there's no verses or wrestling, or there's just some friendly discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. So when we will have a second time, I'm free even on weekdays. 1 hour is fine. I can arrange my time. So if even on weekdays we can speak, give me a time, we'll speak.
I guess like the timing that uh, timing is a bit off because I'm actually in the final semester of my university degree, so I have exams over the next 2 weeks. So
So
if we could speak from about 2 weeks from now, which would be the 16th, all right with you?
16 June. Yeah, fine, fine, totally fine. Yeah. Okay. So the next topic is the origin of the universe and why there's evil and why God is not helping us.
Okay,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.